Welcome to my channel, Croft House, where I show you how to do soft furnishing and reupholstery. In this video I've got a dining seat pad. You may have seen my last video which just had all 4 round corners. Now the reason I'm showing you this one is because it's a little different. I mean, they're pulled at the front, but they're cut out on the back corners, and that is just a slightly different technique. I'm going to work through this video quite quickly because if you've looked at my last video on covering a dining seat, most of the information you need is there. So on this one I'm going to really speed up and concentrate on corners more than anything. So the first thing we do, as always, is remove the backing. Take off the fire retardancy label so I can put it back on the new base cover. So let's get to work. Oh, the first thing, okay, so let's just have a look at some tools. I have a mallet, a hammer, scissors, some pliers, and this is my little ripping tool, which is really useful for getting the staples out. It has 4 little prongs, and you can hook it under the staple and get it out. Give it a whack with a mallet and get it out really quickly. And I just have this little shoe brush because once it's stripped down there can be some bits of staple or dust underneath, and that just is really useful just for brushing things off. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is cutting off the label. And I'll just machine that onto the new base. And then we get ripping. So we take the 4-pronged ripping tool, and it doesn't matter where you start. The trick is just to get these staples out as quickly as possible. And you should be able to just hit a couple of times and they come out. So the reason I'm sitting down is to protect my back. A couple of bashes, a few more, and they just come straight out. So in the last video I was doing it quite slowly, but this is the way, if you want to make some money at it, then you have to go on with it, because it's a slow task and nobody kind of understands quite how much work goes into it. Again, lean your elbow on it and you can just bash around to your heart's content. If they don't come right out, immediately don't worry, you'll come back to that. Just go all around, don't be too worried about whether they come out or not. As I said, you will do that again. You just need to get round as quick as you can. And then we can rip, we can get off and come off. And if it doesn't, you give it a little bit more help. Speed is the essence. And you may start quite slow, but you'll find if you do it regularly, you'll really pick up speed on it. Okay. And then you can pull these out, but I'm not going to do it because, again, we're talking about speed here. So the ones that are hooking up in the air, I'm just going to leave them and then continue with the, I think it's faux leather. Yeah, it's definitely faux leather. Faux leather has been very popular. Its life, depending obviously on how much you use the chairs, is somewhere between 10 and 13 years. So it doesn't last forever. I mean, it's very wipeable, very practical, but it wears. So we just continue the same thing. This one's pretty hard, so they're not coming out terribly well, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to go around and then I will pull everything out. And again, the technique, whether I use the tool or the pliers, it'll whip it out for pretty quickly, and I just want to get the basic lift here. It's a good idea when you're going around to have a look at the corners, see how they're put on in the beginning, because that gives you a good indication of how you need to put it back. And you can see on this corner here that it's pulled in, but it doesn't go right to the corner of the wood. And you must be very careful when you cut it that you don't go down, because the fabric can tear more. So this is cut plenty. I would probably not take it that far. Okay, so I've gone all the way around, untacked them all, and now we can pull. So we rip it all around, and then we go around, and anything that's left in, hoik it out if you can. Be careful of the wood, because as I said, it's usually very poor. A bit of cheap chipwood. Ooh. Okay, so just go all around, hooking out as many as you can. And if you find there are small ones that won't come out, at the end when you've got it smooth, you just feel along with your hand, and anything that's sticking up, just hit it in. Simple. The next thing we need to do is start layering up to replace the cover. When you cut your fabric, especially if it's plain and it has a pile, make sure the pile comes towards you, and mark each one. I've just put a pin in so that I know which is the top, so we don't make any mistakes. Just cut it so that there is enough to get hold of, and you'll see why, because when we pull and staple, we need to really be able to hang on to that to get the staple in and get it far enough back that it's going to be out of the way of the base cloth when it comes on. On the last dining chair that I showed you, I put a layer of 1/4 inch blue seating foam, but I'm using Dacron on this one. It's just a different way to show you. Dacron is just polyester wadding. So what I've done is cut it so that it's just going to come to the edge of where the foam is. I don't want it to come over and cause any more bulk on the back. Even if it's a little bit short, it doesn't matter, because it will just pull down against the foam and you won't know it's there even. Okay, so we just place that, make sure that's on there okay. Get the fabric upside down, top in the right place, and then place this centrally onto your fabric. You can just jiggle it around until it's level, and you can tell, because if you pull your sides up, they're going to be about the same. Now the tool I'm using this time is my staple gun, which is connected to my compressor, but you can use just an electric staple gun or just a hand staple gun. This obviously is going to fire them in really easily and more firmly, but the other staple guns, if you're not doing it fully, if you're not doing it permanently and you don't want the expense or the inconvenience of a compressor, an electric staple gun should work just as well. Now, bearing in mind that we are doing this at speed, trying to do it a little bit quicker than we did the last ones, the difference is the corners are out, and I'm going to bring the fabric over at the corners this time. On the last dining chair video, I made pleats on the corner. This one, I'm just going to bring it over. They're small, they're much narrower, so I can do that. And the fabric is a chenille, piled chenille, and that works quite well. Okay, so we start at the back, pull it up, and because the back and the front are straight, you can find a line. So you just pull that over, put in your first circle, and then, so you can look a little bit closer now, and we just run your hand along, smooth it over, get the line so it follows. Really simply, this is the first edge, so you really can follow, just follow a line. Oh, I think this is the worst one, and it's really splintery. Be very careful on these rough old bits of wood. Okay, just smooth and pull. Don't go too close to the corners. I've left a couple of inches here because you'll need to have room to maneuver the fabric when you get to the corners. Okay, so you can just continue. On the last video I said to you we can put 3 here, 3 here, and then 3, 3. It gives you a good guide if it's new to you. If you've done a few, you're confident enough and you can definitely see a straight line, then you can just continue on one side, which is what I'm doing here because it's quicker. This one is for speed, because if you're doing this as a business, time is money. Well, let me just show you the layers here. Nice bit of wood coming off. So we've got the fabric, the dacron and the foam, and as I pull this dacron you can see it's just going to come to the edge of the foam and it will pull, everything will be pulled as you smooth it. Okay, so we need to get our first one in. So you need to pull it tight, but not so tight that you end up getting ridges on the foam. You get to know the feel of it. So smooth that up and over. And do it a few times until you're happy with it. And this is why you need a good bit of fabric so that you can really hang on to it and get your staple in. So we just continue then, smoothing up. Again, you've got the line of the weave to follow. So I'm just going to do 3 each side, or a couple each side of the centre. And then continue. So that I'm just a couple of inches away from the edge. Now you can pull it and smooth it, but you'll get so that you can just do it quite quickly actually. And you'll get to know the feel of it, of how it should feel. And at the same time as pulling up, pull along so that everything is coming tightly either way. But if there's a bump, because that edge needs to be nice and smooth, as I said, you just pull it in and see. You can do it wherever you feel you need to. Okay. Then when you've done that, we do the sides. The sides you won't have an exact line of weave because they go out. So, however, we do the same again. So we want to just, when we do the first side, take your hand from the middle and smooth over. Hang on to it. Just make sure it's level. Check along here that it's horizontal and vertical, that it's all going where it should. Do that a couple of times till you're happy. Hang on and staple, and then you can just continue. Again, leave it a couple of inches from the edge because you're going to need to fold in and play with those corners to get them nice and straight. Okay, probably on the sides actually is the place where you could do the 3 and 3 and then continue, because then you'll know for sure that you've got it level. hang on and just continue along in the same way. Okay, so I'm going to do the front corners first. Okay, so you find where your join is. You find where the corners meet in the middle and then pull in, and you put a staple here. Okay, so those are together neatly, and I've stapled them either side. And the next is to just follow on, smoothing around, and you can see here where it all comes in rather nicely. Make sure those seams come over. If one's too bulky, make a smaller one, and then make another, but make absolutely sure that they all come under. And we do the same the other side, and then we just staple those in place. Now, to get rid of this bulk that's here, what I've done, I've gone to the underside of this pleat and I've cut up here, and I've done the same on this side, cut here, and then I just cut this bit off in the middle, because you're going to overlay some of the creases and you want to eliminate as much bulk as possible. On my second crease, you can see I've set it just off from the first, because again, you don't want everything layering up on top. It feels smoother if they're staggered. So that's my second one that's come over, and then I will do a third one, and then just maneuver along the edge so that I have a nice sharp edge and we can't see any of these folds on the side. So what I've done on this last fold to eliminate a bit more bulk is the same thing. I've cut up and across, and this bit just comes out. But as I said, the minimal amount of bulk that you can get here will fit everything back nicely onto your chair. So this is the other corner, fitted into place. A little bit of a gather here, you're not going to see it. I've trimmed this edge, and I will do the same here, and it's all about eliminating bulk. You want to be speedy, but you've also got to get that to sit properly on the chair. So the last thing we have to do is the back corners. Now, I've trimmed it already, but remember we have this cut out piece here. Now, what you do is find your corner and you cut down to it, but be careful because you're only going to cut once. And so cut and snip until you're happy. Okay, so I've cut it so it's just shy of that corner, because if you don't want it to tear, you don't want it to fray. So we do that, and then we pull each piece in the opposite direction so they're really tight against the side edge, and then you staple here, and if you're pulling in this direction you staple here. Now you've got a loose piece here, which once that sits on the chair, that will actually sit really nicely into the chair frame. So what I've done is I've stapled it twice, pulled it really tight both sides and stapled. So the next thing, you don't want to cut it too short because we need to make a fold against the crease. So that's very simple, and then all you do is fold this piece down, make sure this edge is nice and smooth, fold this bit down and staple, and that's it. So there we have it. So they're just literally folded under and pull down, pull in your corners, and that's it. Easy. So the last thing to do is just make sure your edges are sitting flat. If not, remember, just pull in, give it a little staple. Just run your fingers over the staples and check there are no heads sticking up. I can feel one there. Just give it a little hit with a hammer, and that's done, then ready for the base cloth. The only thing we have left to do now is put the back cover on, and we just need to make sure that we're covering all the staples and we're getting these little holes covered so we come over. I'm going to do it a little bit differently to how it was taken off. When we took it off, it came across here and it relied on the chair to pull the fabric back. I'm going to snip it, so let's take a look. So now we're going to use a fairly inexpensive, fine, you can see the light through it, black back cloth. This is just to cover everything up and make it neat. Before I put the back cover on, I cut it out and machine on the fire retardancy labels. This is the original and this is mine. So as always, we start at the back. I'm going to put 3 staples in the back, 3 in the front, 3 in either side, and then continue around. So let's get started. Just fold your fabric under. Make sure you've got enough here, which if you cut it correctly you will have. I've just cut it 2 centimeters wider than the seat. So let's get started. So we just go 1, 2, 3. Same at the front. Give it a little stretch, not too much, but just a little, so everything's smooth. Sides the same. Make sure you're happy, make sure it's going to cover the corners, everything that you want. 1, 2, 3, and the other side. You want it a little taut to sit flat. 3. Okay, and then we can just continue. So I'm going to take, these are the back corners, and I'm just going to take it to about 1.5 inches. The other side. It's a little bit closer. Now the front, keep it nice and smooth. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going within 1 inch of the front corners. Okay, and the last side. Get it where you're happy with it. The front corner, if we pull it up from where our folds are, there's a bit of a point, a waste of a point, and we don't want too much bulk, so make sure you don't cut too much, but cut a little bit of it off. You then keep your folds level. Tuck under, and you can take it to a point, but I like to give it a little bit of a fold. So I go across my corner and here, so let me just do that and show you. Okay, so you can see on here where I've just tucked it, just neatened it really, and come along on the folds. So then we'll go to this corner, and then I'll show you how to fold for these back corners. Okay, so I've now cut the corner to here. So the wood is here, but the fabric only comes back to here. So I want to cover, I can keep it as close to this because it's got to sit against the chair, but that's as far as it's going to go. So what my aim is to be able to fold this cut under and back a little bit, so it's not going to fray, it's just going to sit back from the fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do is carry on with this and find where I want my fold to sit along here. Okay, then I'm going to pull this out. Ooh, where are you? And cut this bit off here. Okay, so I've cut off, and my staples are where I want this to fold under. Okay, and I'm now going to do that on both sides, so I can fold both under, and then a little trick, I'm sure you know, but a little trick, if you can't get that to roll, just wet your fingers and then you'll be able to slide it. So you can get that back to where you want it, and then we staple along the sides close to the wood. Okay, so you can see here where I've stapled to a point, and then I've just folded under. This is as close to the edge of the wood as I feel will hold, and then it's just held. So when we come to the piece that's cut under here, is covered. You know, that's going to sit tightly on the chair. And the next thing to do is just to mark where the screws go. I think they were through here in the last dining chair. So you would go right through, and they were all in exactly the same place. On this one, these have not been put centrally, as you can really see on this one. So actually when I tried to fit the seats, they only one fit. So when the seats go back, we have to, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, we're going to have to find the correct seat pads to fit on these. As this is for a customer and I'm not putting them back, I found the pad for the chair that I have, but just find where the screw holes are and give it a mark. I'm also going to just poke the regulator through. Again, that will make it a little bit easier to see when they line the chairs up. And if I was doing this myself, I would then just cut a tiny, tiny snip with the scissors, because that helps the screw go back in. Okay. And then give the chalk a blow. Don't put the back of the chair on the front of another one to stack them, because we don't want chalk on our lovely front cover. But you can then put it back on the chair, and that's it, finished. Now you can see when I put it back on the chair that it fits fine. And even though these corners didn't go back to the wood, they sit, the fabric and with the foam, it comes really nice and close to that wood, and just, you know, you can push it in, and once you've got your screws in place, easy to do. Easy to do. You might feel this sits up a bit. I really wouldn't worry about it. I think it just makes the chair look nicely padded, but you could just run a knife around there, a blunt edge of the knife, to tuck that down a bit if you wanted to. And then we have a very nicely finished chair to take back to the customer. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe and hit the bell to see more reupholstery and soft furnishing videos. See you next time.